December 11th meeting of the Portland City Council. Would you please call the roll?
Novick,
Here.
Fritz,
Here.
Fish, Saltzman, Hales.
Your microphone not working? I'm
No.
here. I'm here. Thank you. So we have we have actually 3 items left over from yesterday's calendar, which we're going to hold until after today's items. So for those of you who are here, I'm sorry, but you'll have to be patient a little bit longer. But we have some city business that got shunted aside thanks to a long council calendar yesterday.
We might be able to do it after
We-
this first one.
We might be able to do it after this first one and before the second one. I think that's probably a good suggestion because we have perhaps a little gap between the two. So let's try that, see if it works so that Sam and his team and others will not have to be here all afternoon. So let's proceed with item 1291, please.
Accept the East Portland Action Plan Transition Plan Report.
Thanks, everyone. Let me cue this item up and then call up some folks that are here to present it. The purpose of this plan, of course, was to identify gaps in policies and services and improvements in East Portland and to look for opportunities to address those gaps and remedy longstanding disparities in this part of our city. After the plan was adopted, community members and the city agreed to continue working together to ensure implementation. Since 2009, the City Council has funded the East Portland Action Plan Advocacy Project, which has done a great job of convening community members and institutional and governmental stakeholders to advocate for the implementation of the plan. Throughout that time, the East Portland Action Plan Advocacy Project has continued to provide leadership and guidance to all of us and to public agencies and other entities throughout the community on how to address identified issues and allocate resources to improve the livability of these neighborhoods. Since 2009, the City Council has used one-time funding each year to support the East Portland Action Plan Advocacy Project known as EPAP. I believe that funding short-term projects with one-time funding is a responsible and reasonable practice. If we're going to carry something on over a longer time frame, we should fund them with ongoing dollars and be honest that something is a continuing effort rather than carry out so-called serial one-time expenditures, which this council has been in the process of working our way out of over the last couple of years. Last year in the city budget process, we directed ONI to work with EPAP and the East Portland Neighborhood Office to develop a transition plan for EPAP that would determine how the advocacy project would move forward. So today, we're going to have representatives from the Office of Neighborhood Involvement and the East Portland Action Plan to share their report with us. I think the presentation is going to start with our own staff team of Amalia Alaconda Morris from ONI and Paul Leisner as well, I think. And then we'll have some of the leadership of the EPAP, of the steering committee as well. So good afternoon, Amalia and Paul.
Afternoon. Mayor Hales, Commissioner Fritz, Commissioner Novick, thank you so much. I'm pleased to be here to introduce the report that was generated jointly by EPAP and ONI in response to the City Budget Office's budget note, Council's budget note about EPAP and its future. Just a few points very briefly before I turn it over. In terms of context and history, so the plan part of the East Portland Action Plan was developed by planning, and then the action part is what came with the effort now known as EPAP, and it happened to ensure that the plan didn't sit on a shelf and collect dust, but rather actually had an impact in the community. EPAP is an independent and autonomous effort that has lived in many places in the city. It's lived in the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. It's lived in the mayor's special appropriations budget. And as of 2 years ago, approximately, it's housed in ONI, where we strongly support and advocate for the work of this model program, keyword there being model, but we don't own or direct it. Plan fulfillment, as many things in government, is a two-way street. There is a city role for how we implement, and then there is a community role as well. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Paul Leisner, who will kick us off to tell you about the results of this report.
Okay, Thanks, Amalia. Mayor Hales and Commissioners, I'm Paul Leisner with the Office of Neighborhood Involvement. And see, how are we gonna, how do we advance it?
Nope.
There it goes. Okay, just to give you a sense of what we're going to talk with you about today. Amalia just gave you an introduction. I'm going to do a review of the report that we're presenting to you, the process and the findings. Arlene Kimura, EPAP co-chair, is going to describe to you one of the questions you asked a lot is how do we know when EPAP is done? And they've done a lot of work to prepare a description of that. Sam Breyer is the superintendent of the Centennial School District. He's going to come and talk about the value of the relationship that EPAP has with the local school districts in East Portland. And Mark Lear from PBOT, who's also a member of the EPAP Technical Advisory Committee, is going to talk about the value of EPAP to city bureaus and the partnerships that they've developed. And then I'll come back and briefly go over the recommendations of the report with you. So just as a reminder, this is what you told us to do last year, and as the mayor said, it was to work with the East Portland Action Plan and East Portland Neighborhood Office to develop a transition plan for EPAP and how we move forward. Just some background, again, the EPAP report was adopted by City Council in 2009. It included 63 strategies and 269 action items in 5 categories: the built environment, the environment, economics, learning, and social. The timeframes that were listed for the individual action items ranged from 0 to 2 years, 2 to 5 years, and 5+ years. So a wide range of different kinds of projects. The project has been funded annually, as the mayor said, and with one-time funding. Last year, EPAP received $300,000. About 40% of that went to pay for the advocate position, which is Laura Wintergreen, who's done a fabulous job supporting the group. 10% went to operations. That's funded a lot of the amazing stuff you've seen at their meetings, the translation, the food, the copying. It's just been amazing. And then the other 50% is actually going out in direct grants to help implement specific action items. So it's a very interesting model. The bulk of the action items were things that city bureaus were assigned as the lead responsibility. So there were 208 action items. Some of them are overlap. 26 items were targeted at the schools. 38 items went to other jurisdictions like the county or East Portland Community College. And then 42 items were directed toward community organizations, businesses, neighborhood associations, and others. And this is just a little more of a breakdown, which was in your report, that looks at some of the different bureaus, what individual players here got. So PBOT got 29, ONI has 31, the schools, again, Multnomah County has 15. So this just gives you a little more of a breakdown. So our process that we used this summer, Mayor's office very kindly got us the services of an Oregon fellow, Julia McKenna, who did a wonderful job. She's from Oregon State University, very professional, and reached out to many, many, many different bureau staff people to get information on what's their experience been like trying to implement the East Portland Action Plan. So the findings that we talk, you're going to use her findings, or I'm presenting them here, that are going to talk about what city bureaus can do and the opportunities there. We also had a lot of interaction and outreach with EPAP members and other community members to identify the value of the EPAP project. So some of the key values that the EPAP advocacy project brings is that it's the city's most focused and effective strategy for advancing the city's equity goals in East Portland. It's comprehensive, it's broad, it's inclusive, it's very constructive and positive. They're also playing a very important convening role. If those of you, I think all of you have been to their meetings, but to have 40 or to 60 people there and all sorts of different jurisdictions, community groups, ethnic groups, neighborhoods, everybody's there and everybody's participating. So they're the only place that's convening people the way to address the needs of East Portland. It's also the state-of-the-art and diverse community involvement. Different people have said, well, do we need outside consultants to come tell us how, or tell EPAP how they should do it? They are in the lead. They are showing everybody else how to do it. It's really in manifesting the kind of things we've always said needed to happen with community involvement. They're actually making it happen. Plus, it keeps attention focused on East Portland and the action plan. Plans keep being generated by city government, and oftentimes the latest plan is the one we focus on, and the past plans get lost. It's keeping the attention on that plan to make sure it gets implemented. Plus, plans get stale. Lots of times, 5 years down, 7 years, 8 years, 10 years. The plan that was done in the past is not necessarily what the community still needs. Bureaus go out trying to implement an older plan and then run into trouble with the community. EPAPS has a major focus on making sure that those priorities of the community are identified every year and communicated to city bureaus. And it also leverages significant community resources and builds and supports significant engagement in East Portland. There are people involved in this process who've never been involved in any sort of city kind of project before. Plus, it's bringing in all the different jurisdictional partners as well. It's really a remarkable effort. And so all of that energy and all of those resources are also being leveraged to implement the plan. The city's not trying to do it by itself. And EPAP's work is distinct from but complements the work of the East Portland Neighborhood Office and the East Portland neighborhoods. EPAP is a very disciplined, focused project that is focused on the 269 action items. The East Portland Neighborhood Office gives a wide range of support in capacity building and organizational support that is different than what EPAP does. So they're not the same thing. They're complementary, but they're not the same. A lot of city agencies have done a lot of great work in trying to implement the EPAP action items. Some of the opportunities that were discovered by Julia in her outreach. One was that bureaus are pulled in many, many different directions, and they need some help to actually keep the focus on the action items that are assigned to them. In some cases, there was lack of bureau buy-in to some of the action items where the action items were developed during that early process, and sometimes bureaus are saying that they don't feel connected to that. Action items vary in specificity and complexity, from building a sidewalk to bringing about broad socioeconomic cultural change, and so there are very different kinds of action items. Completion is something that many times was not really quite clearly defined. There'll be an action item, but it wasn't always clear how we know when it's complete. Sometimes it's building something, sometimes it's creating and sustaining a program. There are many different items where more understanding of what complete looks like would be helpful. And also a more nuanced description of where they are in the process. It's either not started, it's in progress, or it's done. Well, there are a lot of different stages to that, and city staff wanted better guidance on that, as did decision makers. And some action items, even though they were 0 to 2 years, were not completed in the first 2 years because they weren't funded. So that's another issue. Staff turnover in city bureaus. Some city staff were involved in the original plan. They really understood it. They got it. And then they've moved on. New staff are there who weren't part of it and don't necessarily have that same connection or awareness of the plan. The influence of the plan on bureau priorities and work is unclear. Sometimes bureaus will take whatever they're doing and then try to report it within the structure of the EPAP, but not necessarily meeting the spirit of the EPAP. So there's some opportunity for some improvement there. No city entity is charged with tracking and reporting on city bureau progress implementing the action items. The EPAP group does have a mechanism where people can self-report what progress they're making, but a lot of you were asking, well, where are we in the process? How many of these things are done? Where is it? As Amalia said, the advocacy group's doing a great job out in the community organizing themselves and talking to the city. I think it's a time for the city to take some responsibility to make sure that we're stepping up and doing our part in that partnership. So there's an... Yes.
I think that a more nuanced description of in-progress... I turned myself off rather than on. A more nuanced description of progress versus ongoing is needed. That's, I think, is definitely true. Did people provide, or do you have some suggestions as to how to be more nuanced and how to change the reporting?
Sure, there were some cases where, a new program needs to be developed and that it needs to be implemented and then sustained and then evaluated. And so there are different steps like that along the process. Some projects actually needed preparatory data gathering or initial preliminary studies, or there needed to be other work done before the project could actually move to completion. So part of it is really understanding is what are those next logical steps that it would take to reach that final goal of completing that project. Without knowing that, it's sometimes difficult to move forward. Is that what you were asking?
And I think there's going to be some pieces in the recommendations part that are going to offer some thoughts about how the city might be able to assess and track and figure those pieces out.
Yeah, it seems like it's such a broad category that it's not really worth much. I mean, it could be divided up into, 80, mostly actually complete and not started due to funding and various other things. But in progress doesn't really tell you anything.
Right, exactly.
Right, and that was, I think, the complaint
Exactly.
that some of your staff members and some of you shared with us as well. And the same issue goes for other jurisdictions as well. It would be helpful for them to also be able to identify, do some internal tracking themselves. So those were the main findings. And now I'd like to invite up Arlene and Sam and Mark. And Arlene is going to start off and talk to you about what success would look like, because many of you asked, when will it be done?
Good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Arlene, I can't see you. Someone put the Spirit of Portland Award issue to the East Portland
How'd that
Action
get there?
Plan between you and me, and I wonder who did that and why.
It was me. It was me.
Okay. All right.
I'm here to talk about measurable outcomes. We had been asked to find some way of measuring when we would be mostly done. And I know that there was some discussion about an actual number of years. The general meeting of the EPAP did not come to consensus on doing that. What they said was, we can't give a time frame. We're not comfortable doing that. So there was no consensus on giving any sort of year. That, whatever the year was proposed. We had 3 different proposals, so we went with no. What we did do, though, was agree that there are some specific measurable outcomes in terms of our work, which we all do together, that would be significant enough that we would consider the plan mostly complete. And that would be things like the per capita housing investment meets or exceeds the city's per capita housing investments. 25% of East Portland residents would work in East Portland and receive family wage living jobs. Gateway Education Economic Development Center or an equivalent facility in partnership with East Portland Public Schools would be established to provide living wage industry skills for East Portland students and residents. East Portland's high school graduation rate is at least equal to or of the city's high school graduation rate. The aggregate graduation rate in East Portland schools is 80%, and students of all ethnic, racial, first language demographics graduate at equal rates. I think this is very significant. East Portland in Motion is fully implemented, except for the undefined Foster Flip elevated roadway. This includes the Outer Powell Boulevard Conceptual Plan, Sandy Boulevard project. Transit options are improved, and includes the establishment of additional north-south transit lines and connectors to jobs on the Columbia Corridor, which we are working with Corky Collier to see if we can get more traction on that. All collector and arterial streets are ADA compliant with sidewalks on both sides and marked crosswalks at least a quarter of a mile. All roadway facilities meet the city's Port of Portland standards. The identified most dangerous intersections in Portland are not in East Portland 3 years in a row. We'd like to spread the wealth on that one. 80% of East Portland's population is within walking distance of a park, which we are not now, or at least a natural area. And East Portland maintains or exceeds the diverse demographics identified in the U.S. Census 2005-2009 American Community Survey, while achieving the above measurements equally for each demographic community. And we have lots of ethnic variety, and we really want all of them to be part of the greater Portland good living. Thank you.
Thank you.
Arlene, can I just ask you one question?
Uh-huh.
Because your presentation is about measurable outcomes. So I don't want to miss an opportunity to ask you, do you believe through our budget process that we are doing a good enough job reporting back to you measurable outcomes in East Portland? And if not, what would you like to see us do different at budget time?
I think the budget outcomes are incomplete. dollars spent or are often just aggregate dollars. They don't look at specific instances. And for some of our, like our school districts, safe routes to school is an issue. We don't reach the population of our business that becomes, that don't speak English for the most part, and basically cater to, let's say, the Latino, and we don't have any way of measuring that. So it isn't just aggregate dollars. It's how those dollars are distributed.
And what's your view about the utility of budget mapping?
The budget mapping is helpful because we can actually look at, because they're tied to specific projects. And I think that budget mapping is an important tool that can be enhanced and help us better decide where we need to push our focus at any given year. Does that help you?
Does, thank you.
Welcome, Sam.
Yeah, thank you. Sam Breyer, Superintendent of Centennial School District. Thank you for a few moments to talk about East Portland Action Plan. And I was asked to address how it benefits the school district, but I think the real relevant question here is how it helps us benefit the community. And so I want to address that at a big picture level and then a more specific level as well. So we serve outer East Portland, and in partnership, of course, with Park Rose, David Douglas, and portions of the Reynolds School District, we cover the area of East Portland. As you're aware, our community has undergone a fairly rapid transition in the last 10 to 15 years, and that's often discussed in deficit mode or focus on the challenges that we face. And as a superintendent of a school district, and I know my colleagues would agree, we really view this as an opportunity. This is an incredible community here, and we have a chance to partner with our existing residents, with our new residents, our long-term residents, our local government, and our school districts to really build a community to provide some voice, some supports, put down roots, and stop the historic transition that has caused so many problems in our community. As a school district, East Portland Action Plan provides an excellent venue for that, to provide some targets for the school districts to reach, but also a direct connection to a grassroots, democratic, active organization that is specific to the communities we serve. As school districts, we're always working to build those back and forth conversations, and we do that with more or less success. And so an organization like EPAP that does it with so much success and provides us an easy access point into those conversations is truly a benefit to the school district, but also helps us serve and respond to the needs of the community. And that's a really important big picture piece. It was also mentioned earlier that it serves an important convening role. And one of those convenings is the East Portland Action Plan Education Subcommittee, which I've had the pleasure of serving on for the last 3 years. And that committee provides an excellent venue for community activists, community partners, and school districts to sit together, work, and respond to the needs identified in the action plan and the community as a whole. And some of the specific accomplishments of that group are an increase in improvement in the SUN programming and spreading that across more schools in the East County. In Centennial, 70% of our schools are now SUN schools, and I know in David Douglas, I believe it's 100% this year. And that's largely due both to an effective partnership, of course, with the city and county, but also with the education subcommittee work. We also have built really strong partnerships in early childhood education through this committee, and you'll hear largely about that in David Douglas, where they have a very successful center, but it has also benefited schools throughout East Portland. There is, we've prioritized, as we heard about Safe Route to Schools, transportation safety is a huge issue in East Portland. Making sure our students get to and from schools is something we're constantly working on. We've had some impacts through this group, and we'll continue to work on that. Advocacy for regional affordable housing supply. What we want to do, again, is root families in our schools so we can serve and elevate the community together, and that is a really important piece. Strong partnerships with the county library program that have both allowed our community to better utilize the library and also allowed the library to provide service within our schools. A direct benefit that is actually a benefit to the school district that was a big win for us is establishment of policies that let us know when building is happening, particularly large developments. We were growing so rapidly and so haphazardly that in many places it was leading to overcrowding in schools that we simply didn't know were coming and would lead to overcrowded or under-resourced schools. And so that's a tangible action that has really helped us with our long-range planning. Again, we better connect and communicate with our community. One piece of evidence is that we've been able, through the subcommittee, to distribute literature around our school-based health programs in 9 languages instead of the normal 2 or 3 school districts are able to provide. Again, better and stronger connection with community. And now the group has moved on to address the biggest challenge we face in our relationship, and that's how we address parent involvement in K-12 schools, both how we make that more effective for parents and how schools can better provide and support what's happening with our students both in the school day and outside the school day. And those are tangible actions that are taking place. And the last one is a really exciting move that we are in the middle of right now. So thank you again for a few moments to share all the benefits I see of East Portland Action Plan in the school partnership.
Thank you. So now for the City Bureau perspective, Mark Lear.
My name is Mark Lear, Portland Bureau of Transportation, and for most of the time that I served on the Technical Advisory Committee for EPAP, I was the traffic safety manager for the City of Portland. So obviously the work and the help that we were getting from EPAP on traffic safety issues was really valuable. I can say in my 18 years with the City of Portland that I'm not sure I've ever had a group that added as much value to the work that I was personally doing or my groups were doing as EPAP has. It's, from my perspective, the value of the group. It's really helped us understand the issues that people are dealing with, the priorities, getting a shared sense of what goals and what projects we actually want to deliver on, and the amount of staff support that we've gotten from people like Arlene, Dave Hamston, Laura, and others has been amazing. I mean, I feel bad a little bit from sometimes the agency's ability to sort of keep up, but what they've been able to do and the ability to improve on our community outreach has been really positive. Just to highlight a couple of those projects, the East Portland in Motion project really came after EPAP was kicked off, and with that framework, I mean, we could have done East Portland in Motion, but we couldn't have done it anywhere to the level and quality that we did without the help of EPAP, so that was super positive. We've gotten regional funding. There was an example of the Regional Economic Opportunity Fund that I'm really pretty certain that Portland and East Portland specifically probably wouldn't have gotten an allocation absent all that grassroots work and helping us define the problem. So there's, $8 or $9 million of additional resources that came from the region as a result of that conversation, and just all the work that we do, whether it's talking about new funding like Portland's the Street Fund or other conversations, just having EPAP as a place that you can go meet with 60 or 80 people as a diverse a group as you're going to meet from experience in any public sort of setting is just really a valuable thing. I think we've heard that from TriMet, ODOT, PBOT, Police, ONI, PDC, and Multnomah County. When we're having these, I think we meet now once a quarter. When we have these meetings, it's everything from what's happening with the big plans to what we were just talking about, a new housing project near school that's going to create some problems next month, sort of thing that we're addressing. So it's just been really valuable. I think that's the general sense of the people that have served on the Technical Advisory Committee. So thanks for the opportunity to provide that feedback.
Thank you. Questions for any of these folks? Thanks for working together. Thank you. Okay, so, want to get?
Sure, absolutely.
So you're going to go through recommendations, Paul,
Yes.
or with your partners here?
So just quickly here, so one of the main questions you asked of, is this one-time funding, is it going to be done in a year, or is this something that should be shifted to ongoing, as the mayor described? And definitely there's a lot of work left to be done and a lot of great value that EPAP is still providing. So the recommendation is that it shift to ongoing, and that the project be continued to be funded. One of the things that you could really help with is helping make sure that all of your bureaus are actually prioritizing and aware of and prioritizing the EPAP implementation items. I think getting your leadership on that would be very helpful. It would also be helpful just to have a one-time assessment that digs a little deeper than ONI and the EPAP group were able to this time around, but to really look at which items are completed, what remains to be done, how far along are they, get a better definition of what completion looks like for each item, and identifying what sort of steps may need to happen to lead to that completion strategically, and identifying any action items that either that may not be needed anymore, that the community and the city and other partners agree those are things that we don't need anymore, so we don't just have everything on the list forever. Also identifying, once that assessment is done, it would be helpful to have some sort of mechanism within city government that all of our bureaus are reporting on some sort of regular basis on how we're doing, that somebody creates a framework for that and sort of prods us along and gathers that information so you can have it and the community can have it as well.
Does EPAP have a recommendation on what that entity should be?
I don't think that, where's Laura? Laura, did you guys?
When the draft originally came to us, there was a proposal that it either be through the auditor's office because they had done the recent audit, or OMF.
And when did the draft come to you?
That was the first draft of this, coming from the Office of Neighborhood Involvement, the great work that Paul has done on this. And it was not included, and I think with input from other reviewers of the draft.
So why don't you have a seat, because I'm going to ask you some more questions. And thank you. This is Laura Wintergreen, for the record, who's our coordinator for the East Portland Action Plan. Was there any consideration given to having the city budget office be the entity that would be doing the assessment and reporting?
Actually, we talked about correlating it with the geographic mapping. So certainly it was a matter of, if you're doing the geographic mapping, and I believe it was Commissioner Fish saying earlier, you know, is that of value, and then how might that value be enhanced? And we had thought that might be a good locale if people are putting in their, submitting their budgets annually to do a tracking of the action plan.
And what was the discussion around who in the Office of Management and Finance, which bureau within the Office of Management and Finance might be responsible for the annual report?
There wasn't any further discussion because it was chosen not to proceed in the draft. So we
Oh,
moved
right.
forward with the document as it was submitted.
Thank you.
I think the document really focuses on that it would be helpful to have somebody do it, whether, and it's part of, the next step is, if you think that's a good idea, would be then figuring out who would do that.
I was curious, actually, on page 3, it lays out a number. It says, the entity responsible for tracking should have some level of citywide stature that will allow it to engage bureaus across city government. Some entities that might be able to play this role include Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, OMF, the Mayor's Office, the City Auditor, and OEHR. What about ONI itself? Was there consideration given to that?
We're so modest that we did not add ourselves to that list. So,
Well, and I was just interested as to why the city budget office wasn't listed there, because they are the coordinators and the ones that report to all 5 of the council.
yes, and I think that in the conversations recently with mayor's staff, that did come up, that they would also be somebody who would be a good choice.
So you wouldn't be averse to that being the locality?
I don't believe so. I don't think that there would be any opposition through EPAP members.
Thank you.
Another question is, do you have some sense of what the cost would be of doing this kind of tracking in terms of dollars or personnel, and how that should be paid for?
We also did not take a look at that. We didn't have the time and capacity to do that. If that's something you guys think is important, that may be something that the budget office could take a look at, defining a clearer scope of what that would mean, and then being able on that basis to develop cost estimates.
And I had made a recommendation that perhaps discussing between the geographic mapping cost and the work that the auditor's office recently did, looking at the action plan, being able to take input from that process.
So, and that's a one-time project, right?
Exactly.
It's just a where are we now, looking at my, I think, 25 things in parks and 7 things in development services, how many of those are done? So that would be maybe an outside contract you're envisioning?
Well, and I think one of the recommendations was an outside contractor, or again, providing some funding to a city bureau to staff up to do that. Or there'd been talk of trying to do it with a bureau with assistance, again, from another, or Oregon Fellow or some other approach like that.
Yeah, an Oregon Fellow, this seems like a really good project for somebody to do that.
Especially somebody good like Julia was. She was wonderful.
Yes, I'm glad that worked out well for you.
Okay, other questions?
I have
Further-
are we,
So Paul's going to go on further into recommendations, or?
No, we got to the end there.
Okay,
So it
so
was one-time assessment, some sort of ongoing tracking and reporting so we all know what's happening. And then again, just emphasizing for you that EPAP and East Portland Neighborhood Office play very different roles, and that you keep that in your mind.
Right.
That's it.
Okay, Commissioner Fish?
comment and I guess a question. Comment is, I used to meet fairly regularly with EPAP to talk about parks and housing. Now I have a slightly different portfolio. And I wanted to give you a preview of some things next year where I need your help. One of them is we're going to take another run at discounts, how we can fashion a discount program in a multifamily context. Right now, our water and sewer discounts for low-income users are pegged to mostly to homeowners because there's a single meter. The challenge has always been, how do you apply a discount where it's a building with lots of units, but a single meter, and you don't know with precision what each individual's usage is, and since the discount is pegged to usage, it creates a complication. So starting in January, we're going to take another run at that, and obviously this has a significant impact on East Portland, not just low-income families, but also older adults. I want to preview that as something we're going to need help on. Number two is we will be heating up the discussion around surplus property. And we've got some property post Big Pipe that we got to get rid of, and we've got some other properties in both the Water and Bureau and BES. And my guess is if we had the list here, we'd be able to identify properties in East Portland, and there's questions about what do you do with that property, what's the public interest, and under our new guidelines, are there other bureaus that might want to crack at those properties before they go out in the open market? But the third thing is, are we talking currently, Mayor? I'm sorry, I had to step out for a call. Are we talking about the question of funding going forward, or are we
Potentially moving it to ongoing, given the fact that we do have, obviously, a lot of these planned provisions that are going to take a long time to realize, and where there's maybe progress more or less, but no expectation that we're going to be done in a few years?
Well, the mayor has signaled, and the Independent Budget Office has signaled that we are likely to have a chunk of one-time money, and we may have less in the ongoing in the budget going forward. And in terms of budget sustainability, we've been cautioned about serial one-time spending. At some point, either you make the decision and put something in the budget, but you don't treat an ongoing project as just getting one-time funding. So one of the things that I'd be interested in exploring in the budget is, if necessary, a one-year bridge to a sustainable funding plan. So if the only dollars are available, I'm willing to violate the rule, I think is the better rule, which is the ongoing when you can get it. If there's no ongoing, I'd at least be open to a one-year bridge, and then a concrete plan as to how we can put EPAP in the budget. And that's I think a good conversation for the council to have, and then be very specific about what are the kinds of conditions, what are our expectations, what are your expectations, and be very focused on that. But that I think is, and I had a chance briefly to discuss this with Commissioner Fritz, and I'm totally flexible in how we get there, but I would like to see less of the perils of Pauline and more of sort of long-term secure funding, because I think the work you do is irreplaceable. And even though I think there's always room for improvement on both sides, if we didn't have an EPAP, and I've had the good fortune of working with EPAP since we launched in 2009, so it's almost been coterminous with my service, I've seen enormous benefits. And as we've talked about in the past, one of those benefits is I've seen a completely different tenor to the conversation between East Portland neighborhoods and City Hall. And it's gone from one of maybe heavier on the frustration side to heavier on partnership and relationships. And look no further than the fact that Commissioner Fritz in the last year and a half has been able to make a significant down payment on something we've been talking about for a long time, which is East Portland Parks Equity. And she said she was going to take those resources and invest them. And while she wasn't maybe prescient in terms of how much of a bull market we were going to have in the development side, we've never seen so much money come in the door, and she's made sure it goes and is prioritized in East Portland. I don't think it would have happened with the same sense of urgency had that not been a priority that you framed in the plan and you held us accountable to. And the final thing I just wanted to observe for Sam is, Mr. Superintendent, is the last time I was at a elementary school in Centennial, and I won't bore you with the details, but it was meeting with some kids in a Sun School, and it ended up being like a model UN gathering. What struck me was many of the kids had as many as 3 languages under their belt, 3 and 2 languages. And Mayor, we have kids that have a second language. I wish I had a second language. That was the shortcoming in my education. It also means I can't understand my family when they talk in Spanish. But there were kids at the table that had 3 languages. And I was sitting there thinking, you know, sometimes we say, oh, what a burden it is for a school district to have to accommodate 45 or 50 languages. And then I thought, what a gift that we have people of that age who are already fluent in multiple cultures. And why isn't that part of our great advantage as a community? You know, why isn't that an advantage that they can speak multiple languages, have understandings? Some of the kids that come from refugee camps in places you can hardly find on a map. Others had tough roads, but they had language and culture experience. It seems to me in this new global economy, it's one of our great advantages. And I will be looking to you, sir. The Mayor's Economic Development Plan report we got the other day said workforce development and connecting our talent with the next round of jobs is a priority and is a key. And you've got one of the great resources in your own backyard. How do we connect them to jobs that are good paying and that provide opportunity? So I was very inspired.
Well, and I would just like to add, of the measurable outcomes, Arlene said, the EPAP answers that, how you do that. There's been a strong recommendation for the Gateway Education Economic Development Center that all the school districts have come together to say would be a center with Mount Hood to do that, to corral that, and to see that the people in East Portland get that focus.
I concur with Commissioner Fish's framing of the change dynamic between people in East Portland and advocacy in East Portland and City Council, as evidenced by the fact I don't think we have any reporters here today. So if they thought it was going to be controversial, they would have been here. It's really...
Or bad news, yeah, either
Yeah.
one.
Wait a second, is Joanne Hardesty there? I see, okay.
So that's a testament to your advocacy. And as Commissioner Fish said, one of the reasons that I was so passionate about allocating the majority of new system development charge money in East Portland is because of your advocacy. It's your success. It's due to you. So I want to be very clear to you that one way or another, I am committed to continuing funding the East Portland Action Plan, and I believe I have the consensus of the council on that. So as we figure out how to do that, as Commissioner Fish said, it may be one more year of one-time funding and perhaps a budget note to say that then after that, perhaps the one-time funding could coincide with while we're doing this assessment, and then you could bring the assessment to us sometime in the summer or fall of next year. And at that point, we could do something to make sure that, you know, the only thing I'm hesitant about that is there's a lot of value in you coming in every year. And the only reason I'm saying that is because I know that you will come in for the annual report, that it won't be something that will just fade into the sunset and be good people doing good things, but nobody ever knows about it. So if it weren't for that, I'd say let's keep it in one-time funding, because then you'd have to keep doing your advocacy stuff. But you're beyond that. You are seasoned advocates at this point. You are accomplished. And so I believe, need to get the funding, the structure, the support figured out so that you don't have to keep worrying about that. You can keep doing the work that you're doing. I so appreciate being able to contact Laura and Arlene and others when I have committee openings, which coincidentally I do have some more committee openings, so that we get your voices on our commissions, on our boards, on our advisory groups, and make sure that you're heard.
Commissioner Fritz, do you have any openings on the COPA?
As a matter of fact, I do. Thank you for mentioning that, Commissioner Fish. So just today, we are posting the application to be on the Community Oversight Advisory Board for the Department of Justice settlement implementation. And we need good people who can volunteer significant hours a month for sure, but people who are willing to be the eyes and the ears and the voices of the community as we try to partner with the Department of Justice and the Police Bureau in making sure that our streets and our homes and our backyards are safe for everybody. And so could you please go to my website and look about that if you're not able to commit that amount of time yourself, or if you're not if that's not your area of advocacy, go home and call somebody who you think might be able to do it. Because we've got a very short timeline for filling those positions. January 9th is the application deadline, and that's not our choice. We know that we need more time to get the word out. The Department of Justice is holding our feet to the fire. So I know that you can help us, and that even over the holidays, people in East Portland will stay up at night and fill out those forms or fill out the online application. And please reach out to folks and help us get representation, because the Department of Justice specifically mentioned East Portland. East Portland residents and the different communities in East Portland as people who need to be involved in this going forward. We didn't suggest it, they required it. And so thank you for the participation so far, and please get that message out for me and for all of us.
Great. Other questions or comments to the team?
Just a couple of comments. One is, I think that, Arlene, your list of the purpose of EPAP advocacy to be achieved when, that's a phenomenal list. It's very, it's very aspirational, but it's also very concrete. There's nothing vague about it. So I really, really appreciate having that, and that we should strive to achieve it. I also have to say that having the Bureau of Transportation, I mean, I benefit every day from the work of EPAP and the people involved in the East Portland motion, because it's not a matter of us saying, yes, we know there's a lot of transportation issues in East Portland that need to be dealt with. It's a matter of saying there's a lot of transportation issues, and they've been identified and prioritized by the community, and these are things that we know need to be done in this order. And that's just incredibly valuable to have. And we could not have a coherent conversation about the safety element of the street fund proposal without that work. So thank you.
Well, thank you all. It's been a great presentation. We appreciate it very much, and the work of all the leaders in the room. I know we're going to hear from some of them individually as well, so thank you. So I think we probably have some folks either who are here on an official or unofficial basis from EPAP that would like to add to this presentation. So Carla, you can call on folks as you have them.
We have 18 people signed up, and the first three, please come on up, are Bob Ernst, Tom Lewis, and Jeremy O'Leary.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Doing it again? All right. We have technical difficulties with our PA system. Go ahead, please, whoever's going to go first. Bob.
Good afternoon. My name is Bob Ernest. I live on Northeast 107th Place. I live on the western side of or western end of the East Portland Action Plan area. I am a founding member of EPAP and have been involved in the group since December of 2007. I serve as the Structures Committee Chair. Part of the Structures Committee, we developed the idea of having a consensus-based organization. I've also served on other committees, and most recently, I was selected to be on the Gateway Park Citizens Advisory Committee. I'm talking to you today as an area resident. I'm not representing EPAP again. This is because we operate on a consensus model, and we did not reach consensus on some of the items that I wanted to mention today. These are my comments and observations. I support EPAP and the goals. When we moved to our current residence in 1996, I became involved in the Gateway Urban Renewal Citizens Advisory Committee. I served in various leadership roles, including chair, co-chair, and vice chair. When we had community meetings in the late 1990s, the topic of sewers and stormwater runoff dominated many of our meetings. Annexation issues ran a close second on the public agenda. These topics no longer dominate our public meetings. So we've made some major progress in communicating with residents and sort of leveling that playing field. EPAP was formed in December of 2007, and the council approved the plan in February 2009. There's one paid staff and hundreds of volunteers who carry the EPAP forward. So it's a major volunteer organization, and there's a tremendous value for the investment from the city funding. EPAP has brought a focused approach to leverage city services and partner with the community. EPAP is working on safe routes to schools, bringing parks to a park-deficient area, and community building efforts, in addition to a variety of other actions and strategies to engage residents. The community has organized and has involved both new residents and longtime residents to improve our neighborhoods. The work of EPAP is not done. I believe we need at least another 7 to 10 years to accomplish at least 90% of our strategies and actions. We've made significant progress, and I urge your support to continue the good work into the future. EPAP has brought an awareness of East Portland to the city as a whole and recognized that we are a contributing area adding to the quality of life in Portland. Please continue funding for at least the next 7 to 10 years so EPAP can get the work done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor Hales and Commissioners. I'm Tom Lewis with Centennial Community Association. I work with the Operations Committee at EPAP and helping move those priorities for each year ahead, be advocated for. And I wanted to appreciate that lights are on to the way EPAP is structured and the work being done, and I appreciate that very much. I wanted to just have a couple hits on my community being the neighbor to Gresham and the line going out to 174th East, Portland in that direction, and wanting to feel that and have some hope as the city has recognized the needs out my way, even though they haven't reached me yet in some fashion, that there is hope alive. And we could use our named Park Lane Park in the East Portland Action Plan developed. We could use a community center either there or with partnerships such as Rosewood Initiative that has struggles paying their bills and having doors open for us to have a meeting place at and hash over community concerns. And that will make good neighbors to Gresham and the interests that cross the boundaries, take down the boundaries between Portland and Gresham with advocacy with Multnomah County, Metro, and other government entities that will help us make that a consistent, meaningful, livable neighborhoods for both City of Portland and Gresham being one community. And I thank you for your patience.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Jeremy O'Leary. I'm the co-chair of East Portland Action Plan and have been a longtime policy geek. And my motivations for my work with EPAP are based on my involvement with the Peak Oil Task Force, the Climate Action Plan, the Multnomah Food Initiative, and many others. And basically, as we're facing all the challenges from the ongoing economic shifts and energy issues, and how do we adapt to a low carbon future, which we don't really entirely know how to do, there's going to be the pressure points on the community. And those pressure points can take the form of just rent prices or from actual natural disasters. And this is where the basic community organizing that EPAP does is critical, from everything from emergency preparedness to long-term recovery, which is something that I'm talking with the various bureaus about how do we achieve this, and I've been working with Oregon VOAD about how can EPAP fit into a long-term recovery organization effort. And yeah, it's just definitely here to show my support, and hopefully we can figure out something going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks all of you. Appreciate your leadership. Thank you. Next.
Next three are Anna Volkova, Galina Narasa, and Joanne Hardesty.
Welcome, welcome. I think you're on first, Anna.
Good afternoon. So as an immigrant 5 years ago, only things that I knew in East Portland were grocery stores and my workplace. I started working as a workforce specialist for Human Solutions many years ago. And you know that Human Solutions is located in East Portland. And I'm glad that EPAP started working 5 years ago. Thanks to East Portland Action Plan work and regular events, I learned more about City of Portland bureaus and their operations. I learned that my voice and the voice of my community can be heard and can impact me, my community, my neighborhoods in a positive way. I see that community involvement, especially for my community, is rising. But not only this, EPAP members keep accountable city bureaus and state entities. This is phenomenal, and this is something that I've never seen, not only me, I'm an immigrant, but all of those people that I'm talking to. It did not take 1 year, of course. It took more. People just started to believe in their own ability to influence change. It could not be interrupted. And I and my community members want to see all of those EPAP items accomplished, or at least to be at about that stage. I'm very happy to be part of EPAP subcommittees and see positive change happening. For me personally, and for many of my friends and community members, projects like 136th Avenue improvements, working with Multnomah County to have school-based health clinic brochures distributed to all students in 9 languages, have a power to define the application for civic engagement language and culturally specific grant funds, and see how effectively educational subcommittee work with schools and impact many aspects like parenting involvement that needed improvements. And many, many, many others. It's just, I don't have enough time to list all of those projects that were advocated for, accomplished successfully because of EPAP advocacy. Again, they were very important for me personally and my community members, and they happened, which is the most important thing. What I wanted to say again, that not say, but maybe propose that I see how hard Laura Wintergreen is working. So it would be nice to have a paid full-time person who could help Laura in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Galina, you next.
Hi, my name is Galina Nekrasova. I am president of Slavic Immigrants Association. And I work with all Slavic immigrants of east of Portland. And I am a member of EPAP, and I am a member of educational of subcommittee. EPAP is always the most important for us. It is outdoor life center for us. And EPAP, anytime, office is open, 10 a.m. open, 10 p.m. still open, and Laura is still in that office. And Laura is discussion, then she started to work with us and help for us and answer each question. And EPAP for us, it is good school of our new life. It is good supporter. And EPAP is good teacher for us. I am studying all the time. When I come in every month for meeting EPAP, probably did you see it last time when you were at that meeting? 65 people is sitting, and they know what they're talking. They know each street. They know each house of their street. They know problems for each person. And Laura is listening. Laura is a big motor of that EPAP big committee. And we are looking, listening, Laura, and we are doing all of our plans. And we are so happy. And I don't know how myself, and how my community will be without EPAP to organize Slavic culture festivals. Or now, 3 years, we have a Russian language school. It is EPAP, help for us. And I don't know how it will be. This is why I myself support to full funding EPAP, and my community is supporting too.
Thank you.
We are very appreciated for EPAP. It is good help for us.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your help. Ms. Hardesty, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It seems like just yesterday I was here. And the day before that. I want to, and Commissioner Fish took my thunder. I was going to say, shockingly, hopefully you will take a picture that I am here in support of something that the city council and the mayor have been supportive of, and that is the EPAP organization. I want you to know that this is a model of how governments and communities work together. I encourage anyone who hasn't been to a meeting in the last couple of years to come yourself. I appreciate that Commissioner Novak has a staff person that's wonderful, and she comes every time, and she's on the grants committee with me. But I think it's important for you to see what happens when you have a meeting that respects everyone who attends, that anyone who speaks a language other than English doesn't feel like an outcast. There are people there to provide translation. There are people sitting with them. The meeting happens efficiently. We rarely spend more than 15 minutes on an issue in our meetings. It is because we have built trust, we have built respect, we have built an appreciation for the staff and the volunteers who came together because the city was absent. In the 5 years that we've worked together, we have built some really strong relationships, and we built those relationships based on spending time in a room with each other. We eat healthy food at each of our meetings. We provide childcare because we believe if you want low-income parents and community members to participate in the governance of this city, we need to remove barriers to make it accessible to those individuals. So we meet at a time that's convenient for the people who work and go to school, and we make sure that whatever things interfere transportation, we go pick up people and bring them to the meeting. We are a model of how government and community should work in the dance of governance in a community. And I got to tell you, I didn't need another meeting when EPAP started, and wasn't looking for another government meeting to go to talk about what's wrong with government. But that's my community. I live there. I live in East Portland. And I see the need. I see the neglect. But I also see the dedication of the volunteers, the people that come every single month, no matter what. And I get phone calls sometimes at 9 at night. I had to actually tell Laura not to call me at 9 p.m. because my city business is over at 9 p.m. But Laura Wintergreen is in the office. And many times I am talking to her saying, go home. This is not, I mean, you can't pay people enough to have their heart. They're committed to working with volunteers in the community to make our community better. And that's why I've been the co-chair of the grant committee for the last 2 years. I've been on the grant committee for 3 years, and I've been participating in meetings for 4 years with EPAP. It works. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you all. Okay, thanks.
The next three are David Perry, Muhammad Ali, and Keith Schultz.
Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Okay, David, I guess you're on first.
Great. Afternoon, councilors. My name is David Perry. I'm the program director of Zenger Farm in Southeast Portland and a resident of Mill Park. In my role at Zenger Farm, I've had the opportunity to work with the East Portland Action Plan on many occasions, and I'm here to express Zenger Farm's support of EPAP's transition plan. EPAP's role in East Portland goes far beyond providing grants to organizations like Zenger Farm. Beyond the impacts EPAP has demonstrated through its work, I just want to talk a little bit, as others already have, about some of the intangible results of their efforts. EPAP is easily the most inclusive organization I have ever worked with in my time. The diverse group of people who gather for their meetings and the way each community member's voice is heard is truly a model in cutting-edge governance. They are the central hub around which organizations like Zenger Farm can meet others, connect, and work towards common goals. EPAP truly makes us all more efficient and effective in achieving our missions. It's our belief that ongoing funding for EPAP and the actions laid out in their plan will only improve this already effective organization. For this reason, we urge the council to approve the EPAP transition plan as presented. on behalf of the staff and board of Zenger Farm and the communities we serve. Thanks for the opportunity to testify on behalf of the East Portland Action Plan.
Thank you. Mohammed, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Mohammed. I live East Portland, and I'm here to support EPUB because it is the only office I can walk in and use their space anytime I have community gatherings, community trainings. I work with ICO, African Youth Refugee Community Organization, on volunteer basis. We got grant from EPUB that made us possible to train our youth on issue on civic engagement, leadership, and gang prevention. With help of EPUB and the coordination they have created for Somali community, we managed to have an opportunity to meet with House Imperial in Portland, Oregon, because you know very well that Somali families are very large and they need housing issues. And there are a number of families that live a unit that rents 1,600 while they're paid like 1,200. So there's this amount of money that they don't have. And housing is a big issue. So we didn't know where to go. So they help us establish a link where we have the officers, the housing representative come to the community, sit with them, listen the problem from the community. And that was very helpful. And we also get a lot of other information regarding what grants is available, regarding what other community meetings are taking place, so that we are in the process of learning how to integrate smoothly into the community and really understand how to overcome those challenges. So the duration I've worked with the community on voluntary basis and helping EPUB through this kind of communication was very great. And I hope you guys continue supporting EPUB to be able to reach more people. And it was very amazing. So I really recommend that, and I look forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for your help. Good afternoon. Welcome.
Good afternoon. I didn't know I was going to be speaking until my name was called. But 4 years ago, I was introduced to an organization that advocates for transit, and I am a transit-dependent person. Through them, I was introduced to East Portland Action Plan, which is so much of a grassroots organization. I mean, like I just heard earlier that there was one paid staff person and the rest of them are all volunteers. I'm one of them. I will do whatever, you know. I live right east of the East Portland area, but most of my travels and business is done in the eastern part of Portland, and I totally support anything that this organization does to try to make things better for everyone in the East Portland area. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Appreciate your help. Okay.
Next three are Richard Mole, Katie Larcell, and Donita Fry. Then we'll go with Polo Catalani. You left two? Okay. How about David Hampston?
Katie, I think you were first, but
Oh, am I
since you're a
first?
budget advisor, we're going to give you precedence anyway.
Okay. So I was going to testify in my own words, but then I found these words, and these words were spoken by a public official from Portland. And I think this person was talking about East Portland and the East Portland Action Plan. This official was speaking to a group outside of Portland. This is a little bit of a mystery here. And here is what this official said. There are a lot of great neighborhoods in Portland where you can really walk to the farmer's market and go to a local movie theater, and there's a brew pub right down the street, and all those parts that you expect in a great urban neighborhood are there. That's only about half of the neighborhoods in the city. The other half of the neighborhoods are places that were half-baked suburbia when they got annexed to the city, and we're trying to make them complete communities with a local economy in that neighborhood and those kinds of services that you can walk to. And oh yeah, in many cases, there aren't even sidewalks and there's no neighborhood park. So we're spending a lot of effort and time on trying to retrofit those suburban parts of Portland to not be physically identical to the old neighborhoods, but have those ingredients of a complete neighborhood that Portlanders like to see. So does anyone up there recognize those words?
I think I heard those words.
So that was Charlie Hales, and I don't know if you probably don't even like this, but your words are out there on the internet, and
Happy about that.
You were speaking to the urbanophiles. I don't know if that's how you say that.
All right, urbanophile, yes.
was assured those comments would not leave the room.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we get that kind of assurance in this business all the time, right?
So anyway, I just thought that that was wonderful to hear those words. And I think of the East Portland Action Plan as a partnership between the city council and East Portland. And of course, you know that we aren't a silent partner, but we are your partners. And we're your partners in making Portland a complete city. And Portland isn't all Portlandia, as the mayor had pointed out, but a city with new Portlander families and struggling high school dropouts and people who have to take the bus and people who don't work in downtown towers. I want you to imagine what the city would be like without East Portland. It would be a little blah, wouldn't it? Perhaps a little bit too much alike. East Portland is an asset to this city. So then I want you to imagine what Portland would be like, what it would be like without the East Portland Action Plan. There would be a lot of public meetings that you guys just would not want to go to. We've provided a bridge because we are your partners. So I want to end with this very eloquent words of Charlie Hales. Well, now I think we have a role to play, maybe against fighting above our weight, but maybe again fighting above our weight, improving the American paradigm wrong. The richer are always going to get richer, and the 99% are going to keep falling further back behind. I think we can, in our communitarian Portland way, show that no, we're actually capable of thinking about our neighbors, devising economic strategies that lift more people up to a quality of life that some of us already enjoy. And I'd love for that to be the reason for the tours to be coming to Portland in 10 or 20 years from now. And I second that. I would love to have tours in 10 or 20 years coming through East Portland and people pointing out the sidewalks and the parks and people walking along on those sidewalks.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you very much. Richard, I think you're next.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, my name is Richard Moley. I live at 146th and Halsey. I just joined the Wilkes Community Group to help with the cleanup, that's all. And I crossed paths with these guys. And I was amazed. I had no idea my neighborhood was so diverse. I've been there 20 years. Things have changed a lot. It could go south. But these guys are involved. I'm amazed at what they're doing. So it goes without saying, I think, that not everybody comes from a culture or a family in which they organize themselves and petition for help. But when will wealthy neighborhoods stop asking for money? You know, when will influential businesses stop asking for help? Never. But these guys, that's not where they're coming from. But they're really doing amazing things. And because I've been involved with it just a little bit, I've got involved with other neighborhood associations and friends and city issues, and I find it fascinating. And so I just came down here to thank the city for doing such a wonderful thing. Because without stuff like this, we could have problems other parts of the country have. It's great. So thank you.
Thank you. David, welcome.
Hi, I'm David Hampston from the Hazelwood Neighborhood Association, and I'm the East Portland representative to the Transportation Budget Advisory Committee. One thing about the EPAP that I find rather special about it was I was laid off roughly about 6.5 years ago from working for the city. I was a low-level technician, mostly in PBOT, partly in BPS. And it was a wonderful opportunity to actually get involved, really get involved with the community by being involved with the East Portland Action Plan. I was able to do the type of planning, because I have a planning background, a planning degree, the type of planning I could never do when I was working for the city. I could actually see things happen, get things funded. And that's been a really big plus with working with EPAP, because we work as a team. I identify things within the PBOT budgets that can be, how should I say it, maneuvered towards helping East Portland. I pass it on to Katie here, who's on the city budget committee, and then we also pass it on to the various other people who are on the budget advisory committees or have influence within the city. And we basically build a long-term strategy of trying to convince the staff within the various agencies, yourselves as legislators, to actually make those things happen in a way that you would probably do anyway, but maybe 20 years from now, and try to get it done a little bit sooner so that you're actually building up a certain momentum of improvements so that, you know, it's like working with Adams. You get sidewalk here, and that builds up to $8 million for sidewalks in East Portland and another $8 million in Southwest. And then that generally, as Mark Lear was talking about, you get into the, you know, the federal and state monies for bigger projects, and that kind of builds up a certain momentum. Now that we're into the street fees phase, which I'm a very ardent supporter of, it has really gotten to the point that we are seeing some real progress in East Portland in getting things funded. The real difficulty sometimes, though, is actually getting things implemented. And we're always fearful we'll get another Cully Boulevard, you know, it's in a different district of the city than East Portland, but where they get the money and they sit on it for 11 years. And it's always a concern for us that money will be sat upon. But nevertheless, we are seeing progress, and I want to thank you, all of you, for moving that forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Next three are Evan Moore, Brian Lockwood, and Adam Cole. And that's all who signed up.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Is this the appropriate place to sit?
That's fine, Evan, go ahead.
Microphones, okay. Soft voice. So my name is Avon Moore, and I am a volunteer with both Bus Riders Unite, which is a membership advocacy group for transit users, and the Community Alliance of Tenants. I just joined the board of directors of the Community Alliance of Tenants because I've had such positive experiences with its work. So EPAP has had a couple of benefits for both of those organizations. One of them is contributing financially to our programming, but the other big part is having such great organizing capacity that we wind up not having to reinvent the wheel when we find that our priorities, transit and housing, take us into East Portland for obvious reasons. And I wanted to tell you just about one of those projects that EPAP has funded. It was an initiative to build tenant power among immigrant and refugee communities in East Portland. Together with the Center for Intercultural Organizing, we received 2 EPAP grants in 2013 and 2014 to hold multi-language workshops for Burmese, Nepali, and Karen-speaking tenants. All of this took money. The space that we created for building solidarity among different ethnic groups with the same problems, staff time spent sharing critical information about landlord and tenant rights and responsibilities, the translators who made communication possible. And with that money, the tenants who come to these meetings have really built on their resources. They've tackled their repair issues in the apartment complexes. They've traveled to Salem to advocate for themselves. They've shown up to city hearings. It's been a very successful program, and EPAP made it happen. Obviously, that's not going to solve, all the problems that we're seeing, and they're going to continue. We have, existing priorities for, this year and the next year. And if you vote to ensure that EPAP is, funded well, ongoing into the future, then that means that we can keep running programs like these that provide the tools that all East Portlanders need to have their say.
Thank you very much, Ethan. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners, Brian Lockwood. I've sat in front of you before. Thanks so much for having us again. Appreciate it. I'm going to be nice this time. I had a couple things I wanted to say because when you guys ask us questions like, boy, about this funding bit, we get worried. or some of us start going, what are we thinking? The East Portland Action Plan is really easy to plug into. It's been wonderful for me to go from the neighborhood level. I was in Sunnyside, but Pelhurst, Gilbert, plug in, be able to do what we need to do, advocate for things that we need. I've been out there 20 years. I'm a sixth-generation Oregonian, so I see some of this really well, some of the issues. But I really appreciate getting some sidewalks out there and looking at Powell Boulevard. Yeah. And and a lot of things have been said I'd love to reiterate, but I won't. One of the things Frida Christopher wasn't able to make it today, school board chair, East Portland, in the letter that she wrote and sent out in mass mailing, our middle schools are approaching their capacity, and of course, David Douglas High School is the largest high school in Oregon with more than 3,000 students. Yet we continue to grow. Population growth experts predict that David Douglas School District will add another 3,000 students over the next 10 to 20 years. We simply have no place to put these kids. So looking at a sunset clause for East Portland Action Plan and how what that might look like is really hard for me to integrate into my being. I'd love to see East Portland Action Plan become more of the city of Portland and more of the city being able to advocate for itself like that. I think having another paid advocate or 5, but having more advocates in there so that could work with and in the city to be able to leverage your investments and help the city grow, because it's one of very few cities in the nation that are growing at this rate, and it's mind-boggling. We've got $800,000 houses across from Little Hirsch Park being torn down to build new ones. This isn't Connecticut, I didn't think, but wow. Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Welcome. Good afternoon.
Hi, my name's Adam Cole. I'm the Executive Director of Outgrowing Hunger. I've had a few interactions with Commissioner Fish and Commissioner Fitz. In the past, we received the Spirit of Portland Award in 2013 for our work at the Neighborhoods Community Garden, which incidentally is one of the projects that was funded twice through the East Portland Action Plan. A lot's been said, and I wanted to focus on just a couple of things. First off is the incredible ability of the city to leverage its resources through this group, both in terms of outreach, effective outreach to rank and file community members, everybody on the street. We work with refugee families and immigrant families, about 90 families that are involved with our community garden. It was to 80,000 square foot community garden. City gave us over 2 years $9,000. We leveraged that to over $60,000 to build this project and staff it over 2 years. The connections with other community groups, with other organizations that have made that possible, it just wouldn't have happened without the connections we've made through the East Portland Action Plan. And so my ability to connect with many, many people and refer them to a dozen other organizations, Community Alliance of Tenants, and others, to help them meet their own needs through community-based action just wouldn't be there without this part of the unique thing of East Portland. In terms of structure and ongoing, I think it is really important. The city has shown a lot of support in the past. I feel like one of the things that the city could add by bringing that into a permanent budget item is this both accountability and mentoring towards effective outcomes, saying we're going to work hard until we get our job done, and measurable goals to get there, and asking hard questions maybe on how money is spent and having, encouraging discussions at the community-based level of how can we be more effective, how can we be most effective, on top of the incredible leveraging of the city's resources that already exist out there. And then, of course, it's the convening role. I was at a meeting with Representative Chris Gorsuch, who represents Gresham, Rockwood area, earlier this week, with all of the hunger organizations that are addressing East Portland, Snowcap, Oregon Food Bank, Human Solutions, a handful of others. And the question that permeated the room was, how do you actually get people that we are serving involved with something to affect their own future? And I think the East Portland Action Plan does an incredible job of that, and it is truly a model that could be duplicated wherever the right mix of people and city willingness exists. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Okay, is there anyone else that wants to speak? If not, then let's take a motion, please, to accept the report.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? Then we'll take a council roll call vote on that.
Novick?
Well, clearly, there's work we have to do in terms of figuring out how we're going to do that progress tracking, what the tracking will look like, how we pay for it, whether we're doing that in-depth assessment of where we are now. But that's work that we need to do. And again, I'd like to reiterate that I think that the list of things that we need to achieve in order for the purpose of the plan to be achieved is a great list, and it should be the basis for a lot of our work for many years, for hopefully not too many years to come, but for a number of years to come. Aye.
Fritz?
I envision a day in which people will say, well, you have to go to East Portland because you can't get anything done without East Portland. You know, we may be voting at some points on a transportation funding mechanism, and wouldn't it be great if people knew that they had to campaign in East Portland and that East Portland carried the day on that, because that's where much of the need is. So I really appreciate you being here today and your ongoing diligence in partnership with the city. I heard the word partnership a lot today, and that exemplifies both within the many different diverse communities within East Portland, and then with the other areas of Portland and the city council and your government. So thank you for being here today. I'm committed to getting that assessment done, providing that coordinating body, and figuring out how to move East Portland Action Plan into ongoing funding. Aye.
Fish?
Every year I get to say the same thing, which is this is one of the most successful community planning processes that I've been involved with during my 6 years. And I put it in the same category of the Cully Concordia Plan and a couple of other community conversations that actually moved the ball and didn't just sort of end up on a shelf. And in 2002, I remember that in a couple of local races for city council, I remember that one of the key themes was people referred to East Portland as the forgotten Portland. In fact, that was at the center of one candidate's campaign, and he ended up being elected to the council in 2002. I think it would be a stretch today to say East Portland is forgotten, because there's too much work that's been done building relationships, advancing shared values, building partnerships, and doing planning. I think now the challenge is moving forward and honoring the commitments we've made and building on a stronger foundation. And the truth is, there's been just a sea change. And you know, you can see it in a new soccer field in Park Rose. You can see it in an early childhood education program in David Douglas. You can see it in a expanded footprint at Leach Botanical Garden. You can see it at a new park in Gateway. You just go anywhere you go, there's something you can point to and say that this more robust community partnership has produced a win for people who live there. But the challenges are still so clear to us. 40% of the families with children live in East Portland, but disproportionate levels of poverty, disproportionate lack of opportunity, disproportionately not the kind of infrastructure that people should expect, and on and on. The mayor, and Commissioner Fritz, and I were at a lunch today in which a very eloquent pastor got up and, as part of his speech, posed the challenge of what kind of city do we want? And I thought it was a very beautiful way of sort of framing the question, what kind of city do we want? And I think clearly we want a city there where you get basic services and it doesn't depend on your zip code, where the quality of your child's education doesn't depend on which school they go to, and everybody has a chance to reach their full potential, among other things. And there's a lot of work to be done, and it's going to take a lot of time and dedication, but I really believe that this East Portland Action Plan has been responsible for some game-changing progress in East Portland. And I would hate to see us prematurely declare victory on any portion of it. I think we need to double down. And that's why I will continue to support the EPAP and the good folks in this room who volunteer their time to make it sing, and why I believe that we need ongoing funding so that you can continue this work into the future. Thank you for the report and all of your service to our community. Aye.
Hales?
Well, I want to thank all of you and our staff and this council discussion. You know, the word partnership got used a lot, and I want to refer to that and be very clear with you as our partner, because that's what partners ought to do. We put in this budget note to ask an open-minded question, which is this a short-term phenomenon? Is this a project that starts and stops in a couple of years, or is it an ongoing implementation effort? And I think we've asked and answered that question, both with what the staff brought forward and with your eloquent testimony, not just today, but throughout the EPAP's work. So I think we've answered that question. This is an ongoing effort. It should be in the budget. One of the prerogatives that I get as mayor, of course, is to propose the budget. And this discussion, I think, has illustrated where the consensus on the council is, and mine as well. And that is, in the next one or two budgets, we need to move this funding from one-time to ongoing. The only reason we're hedging our bet about that question is, just as Commissioner Fish described, what's happening to our budget is it's gradually getting healthier. That shows up in the short term as one-time resources, and over time improves the base level of funding in the general fund. So it might not be in this next budget that we're able to accomplish that transition. But both because we've asked and answered the question and you've made the case, that's what we should do for you, our partner. We also need to do it, as I mentioned earlier, as a principle that this council's been very disciplined about paying off debt and managing your money well, spending the money in the right budgets in the right categories, with people like Katie Arcel looking carefully at our budget at every step of the way, and then moving things onto the ongoing budget that are ongoing functions. And we're doing that. We're almost there. So I ask you to just bear with us a little bit. We're not hedging our bets because we're tentative about the partnership. We're just hedging our bets because we're trying to be financially realistic and spend money that we only actually have, rather than putting our Visa on our MasterCard. So, you know, over the next couple of years, clearly you've got the council ready to make that transition, and you've got a solid recommendation from Paul and Amalia and from all of you to do that. So that's going to happen. The other reason it needs to happen is that your activism needs to be focused on a really impressive and scary list of issues that need to be addressed. We're updating our comp plan. Big deal for East Portland and for everywhere else. Division Powell was mentioned. You know, if we don't move fairly quickly, we're going to, when we open the new light rail line next year, it's going to be the first time in a couple of decades that Portland doesn't have a transit project in the Federal Transit Administration pipeline. And that's a sin, as far as I'm concerned, whenever there's federal money on the table. So the Division Powell project is, in my opinion, a great idea. We need to, and I know Commissioner Novick feels this way as well, focus it, get a proposal on the table, try to move that quickly. We'll need your help. Parks, where next, how? You know, where in East Portland is the next target of opportunity that Commissioner Fritz and you and the Parks Bureau want to identify? One issue that just got mentioned in passing here, but it's huge. Where's David Douglas School District going to find the parcels that they need to build the next couple of schools on in a part of the city that's seeing a whole bunch of development right now? Big issue. We want you as activists and with this holistic view of East Portland as a community to help the district take that on, and Centennial and Park Rose as well, for that matter. Economic development, Katie quoted that article that I got interviewed about. We're tasking PDC with their next 5 years of strategic planning right now, and I've told them, in my opinion, PDC has 3 missions. building the city, creating jobs, and spreading prosperity, which is very much the idea of the Neighborhood Prosperity Initiative in some of these specific districts like 122nd and Division, where we've tried some new tools. We're going to need your help in figuring out what's working, what's not working, where should we try it next. So there's all this substantive stuff that's on the table where we really want your activism focused, and we appreciate your advocacy for the budget. It's obviously worked, and we want you to put that energy into helping get these really critical tasks done. So I'm glad that the institution of EPAP as a citizen body is as sound as the list of things that you have to work on, because you're going to need all that volunteerism to address all these really important community questions. So looking forward to your continued partnership in all that work. There will be times when we agree, there'll be times when we disagree. That's the democratic process. That's great. You're really helping make it rich and real in East Portland. So thank you all very much. Aye. And let's take a 5-minute recess before we go to the rest of our agenda. Thanks very much, everybody.
Mayor, if we have this next thing teed up at 3.
To take action on an emergency item. In fact, let's take that item first, 1280, because it's an emergency item and because the city attorney may need to pull me out for a few minutes during the course of this council meeting. So I understand, Sam, that that's not going to take long. But let's read item 1280, reacquire Commissioner Novick, and deal with that first, and then move on to the other two items.
Okay, 1280, amend the fire and police disability, retirement, and death benefit plan so that the plan will retain its tax qualified status.
Mr. Hutchison, come on up.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Appreciate you fitting me in on a busy schedule over the last couple of days.
Appreciate your patience during those last couple of days.
So I'm here, asking the City Council to approve the attached ordinance, which is an amendment to Chapter 5 of the City of Portland Charter. This charter chapter pertains to the Fire, Police, Disability, and Retirement Fund. This ordinance is needed so the fund retains its IRS tax qualification status. The ordinance is prompted by the June 26, 2013 U.S. Supreme Court decision on the case of United States versus Windsor that found Section 3 of the Defense of Marriage Act to be unconstitutional. Specifically, the Supreme Court found that marriage as defined as legal union between one man and one woman as husband and wife to be unconstitutional. Shortly after the Supreme Court made their decision on Windsor, the IRS amended their revenue rules in order to make sure that those rules complied with the Windsor decision. In September was when those were made, and there was a decision that the rules that the IRS were making would impact retirement plans. And in their rule, the IRS defined marriage and spouse to include same-sex marriages if the individuals are lawfully married under a state law with that. Additional IRS rules and notices affecting retirement plans were introduced in April of 2014, most important being that all IRS rules would be effective back to June 26, 2013, and that all retirement plans, including FPDR, must amend their plans retro to June 26, 2013, but those plans must be amended by December 31 of this year. So Exhibit A outlines needed amendments to Chapter 5 of the City of Portland. Those amendments will again assure that the FPDR fund complies with the IRS changes and will retain its tax qualified status. The exhibit was drafted by the FPDR attorney Lauren Dunhauer and Deputy City Attorney Ken McGare. And at this point, the amendment will have no financial impact on the plan.
Okay, thank you. Questions for Sam? Thank you very much. Is there anyone signed up to speak on this item?
Not have a sign-up sheet.
Anyone want to speak on this item? If not, we will take a roll call vote.
Novick?
Aye.
Fritz?
Aye.
Fish?
Thank you for a very economical presentation. Aye.
Hales?
Appreciate the good work here. I think this is probably the only time I've ever seen us actually use this peculiar little charter provision that allows the city council to change the charter. Usually the voters have to do that, but if we're complying with federal law, we get to do it.
Yep.
And so we will. Aye. Thank you. Okay, let's take item 1279.
Authorize the city to intervene in a proceeding in the matter of the United States of America versus Linton Plywood Association, U.S. District Court, case number 3141772, pending in the United States District Court for the District of Oregon.
Ms. Klinger, welcome.
Good afternoon. I'm Nancy Klinger, Senior Deputy in the City Attorney's Office. Good afternoon. I'm here to discuss a proposed resolution to intervene in litigation between the United States Environmental Protection Agency and the Linton Plywood. Oh, certainly. And the Linton Plywood Association. I'll tell you what the case is and what the city's interests are in intervening in this matter. Linton Plywood operated a mill from about the 1950s through around 2001. They have closed the mill. They have wrapped up most of their financial dealings, but not all. One of the things that they are doing is trying to settle their liability that may be related to the Portland Harbor Superfund site. They approached the U.S. EPA. EPA entered a complaint against Linton Plywood Association in November regarding their liabilities, and then with that complaint, they also entered a proposed consent decree to settle those liabilities. The settlement will address Linton Plywood Association's past and future liabilities for the Portland Harbor Federal Superfund site, and it provides them with protection against the claims of others who may have claims against them for cleanup, contribution claims. The city supports this settlement, and it's conducted under a process called an ability to pay. When you have an entity that has finite resources, there is a program that EPA has to settle their liabilities as quickly as possible, as anything's possible in Superfund. It's not a matter that the settlement is inefficient. The issue is that how EPA has structured this settlement, which is likely to be one of the early settlements of many, has two problems that concern the city, and they're disturbing precedents. The first one is that it will extinguish the rights of the parties who have stepped up and paid for the remedial investigation and feasibility study. This would be the Lower Willamette Group, which the city is a member of. This settlement extinguishes those liabilities without even recognizing them. We are not looking to extract additional funds from the Linton and Plywood Association and don't believe they're there, but we also do not want to see a settlement proposal that does not even recognize that those claims exist, which extinguishes them. The other concern is the fairness of this settlement template and how EPA uses the money that it receives in the settlement. EPA is not constrained from using it in a general Superfund fund. It is not dedicated to the Portland Harbor Superfund site, and we would like it to be dedicated to cleanup within Portland Harbor first, and if there were funds left over at the end of the day, they could go to the general fund. So it's a positive step to be able to have a party like the Linton Plywood Association achieve a settlement. But our office is recommending that we intervene in this suit. Currently, while it's during, I forgot to mention earlier, they have a public comment period simultaneously when they lodge the proposed settlement in court, and we are within this public comment period. And so we'd like to intervene and resolve these issues with EPA quickly and not cause delay, but also not set a troubling precedent for future settlements that we feel are imminent.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Any questions for Nancy? Very good report. Thank you very much. Anyone want to speak on this item? If not, then it's a resolution. We'll take a roll call vote.
Novick?
Aye.
Fritz?
Aye.
Fish?
Aye.
Hales?
Aye, thank you. Okay, item 1287.
Authorize a change order for Powell Butte Reservoir 2 Phase 2 project at a cost of $1,600,000.
Commissioner Fish.
Thank you, Mayor Hales. Before us today is a change order. I believe it's the 8th change order, but ninth, excuse me, but David will clarify that. For Powell Butte Reservoir 2, which is now currently in service. In fact, you've been drinking water from Powell Butte Reservoir 2.
Here's to you.
We will be coming back at some future date to talk more about the project in the context of the overall compliance with LT2. But the good news is that we are under budget. And as David explains, this change order addresses a dispute with the contractor, which we have resolved and for which we're seeking council approval to move forward. Because the change order is in excess of $500,000, it falls within our new policy that requires that it come to council, not on the consent agenda, but on a regular agenda for a full council hearing and deliberation. And with that, I turn it over to David Schaff.
Good afternoon, Mayor and the rest of the City Council. I'm David Schaff, the Director of the Portland Water Bureau. With me is Chief Engineer Mike Stewart. Powell Butte Reservoir 2 is one of several projects that are associated with the city's compliance with the unfunded federal LT2 drinking water mandate. You'll recall that we're the only system in the country that's achieved a variance on the treatment side of the rule related to cryptosporidium. Our variance saved us the cost of building a very expensive treatment plant up in the Bull Run watershed. The open reservoir portion of the rule is what we're talking about today. The Powell Butte project includes the reservoir, site excavation, on and off site piping, other facilities associated with the reservoir, as well as the maintenance building, caretaker residence, visitor center, and other minor park improvements. Although we have about a year's worth of work to go, the new reservoir was indeed put into service last August, and it's been performing as it should. As a matter of fact, Powell Butte Reservoir 1 is offline, has been off for some time, so that we can do some of the piping work. And then we'll be cleaning it this summer, or this spring, and putting it into service in the summer in time for our increased demand. At least some of you will remember that you approved this project back in 2009 at an estimated budget of $138 million. We expect to complete this project at about just over $117 million, so more than $20 million less than we originally told you in 2009, or about 15% under that original budget. Yes?
Could you just repeat that for the record?
Sure.
And for all of our many viewers.
We expect to complete the project for just over $117 million. That's $20 million less, or about 15% under the original budget that council approved in 2009. In accordance with city code and state statute, we contracted with SSC Construction, Inc. through a low bid procurement process to construct this portion of the project. The original contract was for $80.2 million. There have been 8 change orders that have been approved, and representing a net increase of $2.2 million in the contract. The total cost of this proposed change order, number 9, is $1.6 million. It will increase the contract amount to just over $84 million, 4.7% over the original contract amount. Now, you know that OMF now provides oversight of active construction contracts with something called the City of Portland Open Construction Contract Status Report. It's a quarterly snapshot that uses a stoplight system to rank projects in terms of contract amendments. This project remains green at below 5% in cost changes. Now, because we're still working on the project, will be for another, close to another year, we can expect additional change orders. There might be as many as 3 before the contract is complete, the contractor is demobilized, and the entire site's been turned over to our operations group for a day-to-day operations. As an example, I'm told that we're actually negotiating payment for change order number 10 for additional field work that we've assigned to the contract. As Commissioner Fish alluded to, city code requires us to obtain your approval when we're amending contracts if the value of the contract is over $500,000 and the amendment pushes the contract over 25% of the original amount. We're not there. This change order only increases the total contract amount to 4.7% above the original contract amount, but we're here today because Commissioner Fish requires that all change orders over $500,000 come before the council as a non-emergency regular agenda ordinance. So the reason Mike is here is he's going to do the specifics. The change order resolves the settlement of several claims as we near the end of the project, and I've asked Mike to kind of go over them and outline them for you.
So this particular claim settles six.
Introduce yourself for the record.
Hi, I'm Mike Stewart. I'm the Chief Engineer of the Water Bureau. This settlement settles 6 claims together. The first claim had to do with something called a plunger valve actuator. Sounds tricky, doesn't it? If you imagine your toilet plunger and shoving it into the bottom of the toilet, it plugs it up. That's how this valve works. It's
A little
All-
bigger, I
I was
suspect.
going to say that. bigger.
It's bigger, it takes a big crane to move it, but it functions exactly that way, and it allows us to throttle the water that comes in and out of the big conduits. They're all custom designed. You don't buy valves like this off the shelf, and we had to modify the design some. The second one is a design change due to moving the location of one of our big vaults on 147th and Powell. Several years ago, I can hardly remember that far back, we agreed to let Lucid put in electrical turbine in the piping system, and we had to move the vaults around, and we needed to pay the contractor for that. The third one is what we call the Kelly Butte Reservoir Time Allowance. We're doing two huge projects at once. We run off of 3 conduits at a time, conduit 2 and 4, and we had to juggle the conduits, and because of various advances and delays in the project, we stopped the Powell Butte contractor while we did some work that we needed to do for the Kelly Butte job. The fourth one is a maintenance shutdown due to valve work, due to repairs on conduit 2. When we opened up this big vault in the street, it's a 2 or 3 story vault, and started taking it apart, we found that in the old days, we used the big valves in these vaults to throttle water. That causes turbulence, and it chewed up the concrete lining that's inside these valves, and we had to fix that. We won't have this problem in the future because we put these big plunger valves, which are designed to throttle, in place. Then we had settlement of the environmental quality charge for the discharge at Powell Butte, you all recall that. And the last one is greater than expected cracking and repairs in the reservoir. Maybe this is kind of funny, maybe it isn't, but almost 103 years ago today, 9 days shy of 103 years ago, one of my predecessors, D.D. Clark, who was chief engineer of the Bureau at the time, had to explain to the newspaper then, which I think was called the Portland Journal, that yes, Reservoir 5, which they just turned on, was leaking 3 million gallons a day, but everything would be all right in the end. I think our contractor has done an excellent job at fixing the cracks in Powell Butte 2. They're expected. That's why we have the provisions in the contract. And right now, since engineers were kind of picky about how we say these things, it leaks between 0 and 375 gallons a day. It's the tightest reservoir in the city. So that's the summary of.
And the most resilient.
And the most resilient. We'll all be very glad if we have an earthquake that reservoir is there because it will survive the earthquake.
Thank you.
Okay. Questions for either David or Mike? Thank you both.
I
Great
wish I
report.
had some because this is really interesting, but you've just explained it all to my satisfaction. I know we have a couple of folks here who might have questions, but thank you for that good explanation.
We try. Thank you.
All right. Anyone like to speak on this item? Come on up, Linda.
Linda Bauer. I object to paying the Water Bureau's contractor $40,000 to break the law. They were fined by the Department of Environmental Quality $40,000, and apparently we are paying for that. Thank you.
Okay, we'll have David come up.
That's a good question.
Thank you,
Good
Linda.
question.
David, you have exactly 30 seconds to answer that question because we have another panel waiting to be heard.
Actually, I'm going to let Mike
So
respond.
when we were issued the fine, being the good citizens we are,
Some of us don't know what the fine was for, so could you just
we had
explain
an
what's-
inadvertent discharge when we were draining the reservoir to look at its performance of excess chlorine into Johnson Creek. And we weren't supposed to do that. We thought we had our bases covered, but obviously we didn't. And I would thank Linda Bauer for being aware. She's the one who caught it, and if she hadn't been there and called us up, this could have been worse than it was. But we fixed that, and the fine was $40,800. We wrote a check right away to DEQ because we don't delay and hassle the contractor. In the process of negotiating this settlement, we reduced their payment by $40,800 because the contract required them to suffer that cost. So yes, we paid the initial cost because we promptly paid DEQ, and we have recovered that cost in this settlement.
So it's us getting the 40,000 back.
Right.
By
Absolutely.
By not paying them 40,000 as much as we would
Yes.
have. Okay.
Exactly.
How does a person who's not got a, how did Linda even know that the chlorinated water was getting in there?
Linda's very smart, and she's been
Amazing.
watching this a long time, and you can smell it.
She has special powers.
She could actually,
And maybe she does have special powers too, I don't know, but she could smell it, and she was right.
that's wonderful,
Yeah.
both that we have an astute citizen and that you then responded. You don't get to come back, Linda, but could you nod or shake your head as to whether that explanation is satisfactory to you? Thank you very much.
And by the way, Commissioner Fritz, we decided, for a variety of reasons, not to contest the fine. The Bureau, even though we were working with a contractor and a subcontractor, we felt that it was not an issue that we should use ratepayer dollars to litigate or to pursue other remedies. So we paid the fine, and we made sure it didn't happen again.
So, thank you, Linda.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Then let's set that over for second reading next week. Thanking the Bureau for good management and a successful project management, and thanking Linda for being vigilant in more ways than one. All right, let's move on to item 1292.
Accept the annual report of the Public Safety Obligation Bond Program Independent Citizens Committee.
Want to welcome this panel and appreciate your patience. This is a review process that's been underway since 2011 to make sure that the funds that were authorized by the voters have been properly expended. So we're looking forward to hearing your report.
Thank you, Mayor Hales, members of the City Council. I'm Kirk Hall. I'm the chair of the General Obligation Bond Independent Citizen Committee. With me today are two fellow committee members, Nicolette Johnson and Mick Seidel. We will try to keep this brief. Just by way of background, in June 2010, the council decided to proceed with a bond resolution. Your council resolution, for 4 projects we'll discuss in a minute, your resolution had the following language: Portland's taxpayers expect transparency and accountability in the use of these funds, and this will be achieved in part through the appointment of a 5-member independent citizen committee comprised of each city council member's appointee that would report annually to the city council and quarterly to the city chief administrative officer. And the bond amount is $72.4 million has been authorized. That was June 2010. It was approved by the voters in November 2010. And the measure also contains the following language that's relevant to the meeting today. The council shall appoint a 5-member citizen committee with relevant expertise to review bond expenditures and provide annual reports to the council on whether such expenditures adhere to voter-approved uses. Each council member shall recommend 1 member to serve on the citizen committee. We have 2 vacancies right now. The 4 projects being funded by
I need to interrupt and apologize for my ongoing vacancy. I know that puts more pressure on you as volunteers, and I'm working on it.
Okay, thank you. There's 4 projects funded by this bond: new fire apparatus, Fire Station 21 along the river, radio replacement, and the Emergency Coordinating Center. We have very good news for you today. The way we're planning to handle this is that we, the 3 current members of the committee, will give you our conclusion about the events over the last year. We had a meeting like this a year ago, and then we're going to call up, with your permission, 5 city staff members to talk about finance, and then to talk about the 4 projects. And everyone knows to keep it short. I can just summarize. Our conclusion is in your written report, and if you don't mind, it's 5 paragraphs. I would like to read it because this is the conclusion for the work for the last year.
Please do.
As previously noted, the ICC held quarterly public meetings with city staff responsible for each project funded by the Public Safety GEO Bond to review the progress of each project. In addition, each project received guidance and input from project oversight committees. The members of the ICC found the information provided by the city staff to be comprehensive, timely, and informative, Staff members have been responsive to the ICC questions and have supplemented their regular presentations with additional information upon request. ICC members also provided city staff with various ideas and suggestions concerning the projects, to which city staff were always responsive. The relationship between ICC and the city staff has been collaborative and productive. The ICC does not provide either a financial or performance auditing function and can only proceed with information presented to it at its quarterly meetings. With this observation, ICC members believe they have been kept fully informed by city staff and are satisfied with the quality and presentation of information presented regarding the projects. Based on the information presented to the ICC, it appears that the projects funded by the Public Safety GEO Bond are consistent with the voter-approved purposes of the GEO Bond, and that expenditures to date have also been appropriate. It also appears that execution of the projects to date has been professional and appropriate and was designed to meet the purposes of the GEO Bond in an economical fashion. It appears to the ICC that the projects are generally on track to meet their projected budgets and timelines. And in fact, as you'll hear, we've had some very good progress. Overall, the ICC members have been impressed with the focus and professionalism of the city staff responsible for executing these projects, and we appreciate the courtesy and responsiveness the ICC has received to date. So that is our overall report, our overall conclusion. Again, this year we decided it'd be best if you heard from a short report from city staff members about the status of each project. At this point, I will ask either Nicolette if you have anything to offer, or Mick.
I would like to. Thank you, Nicolette Johnston. And as a member of the Independent Citizen Committee and the Project Oversight Committee Chairperson for Fire Station 21 and for the Fire Apparatus Replacement Project, I have 3 comments. Regarding Fire Station 21, this project was kept on track through the diligence of Connie Johnson, a project manager from the Bureau of Internal Business Services. She stayed glued, and I do mean glued, to the details despite several broken bones. The Station 21 team is expected to complete the project within budget, and gosh, I hope there's a little money under budget there.
And please tell me she didn't break her bones actually on the project.
No, she didn't. Fortunately, it wasn't work-related.
Nor at our meetings.
Nor at our meetings, yes. I especially appreciate her stewardship of the taxpayers' money throughout the project timeframe. Regarding the fire apparatus replacement project, this started with a very short timeline to reject the cost of the 25 apparatus to be purchased under the GEO bond measure. You can imagine all the details that goes into even one fire truck, much less 25. To Deputy Chief Marco Benetti's credit, he sought creative solutions such as cooperative agreements with other cities like Houston and Seattle, which provided substantial savings in time and staff resources. Further, the Fire Bureau looked into such equipment as the Quints to do double duty, and I'm sure you've heard about those. Regarding the financial reporting, with regard to administering the financial reports, Aaron Beck, the finance manager in business operations, handled the grilling and endless questions at the Project Oversight Committee meetings with aplomb and just wonderful humor. Financial status reports are often reviewed as boring, even annoying, and Mr. Beck's thoroughness was particularly appreciated. His explanations left us with a sense of trust throughout the past 3.5 years, and I want to thank them all for being such great employees.
I agree with that. Mick?
I'll just be real quick. There's nothing more I can add. From a personal standpoint, I was appointed by Commissioner Fish a couple of years ago to fill a vacancy. I had not been involved in this type of process before, so I didn't know what to expect. I think in general, it's been a bit of a love fest. I think the committee has, as the summary we've read indicates, had very productive meetings with city staff. They've been nothing but courteous, informative, competent, and I think all 3 of us share that opinion that it's been a very productive process for us individually. So I think the main charge that we have as a committee is to make sure the city is being a good steward of some money that was approved by the citizens to be paid or to be used to buy certain things and do certain things. And we're here to tell you that we feel the city's been a good steward of that money.
And I'll add one point. The timing was terrific for this because the interest rate you're paying on the bonds is, you'll never see that again in your lifetime. And many of the projects the bids came in lower than anticipated at the time the bond measure went out there. With that, with your permission, I'd like to present Aaron Beck to talk about finances, Marco Benetti for fire apparatus, Connie Johnson for Fire Station 21, Carl Larson, radio replacement, and Jim Coker, ECC. They each will make a very short report.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just pull up another extra chair or two if you want to bring everybody at once.
And that station moves back and forth.
That big microphone box
you
will
can move the
slide
whole
around.
thing,
So
slide the whole thing.
after
Carla
Aaron-
doesn't like us to do that
after
because it
Aaron-
messes
she'll
up the
take
wires.
care of it. All right, after Aaron.
I'm sorry, Carla.
We'll rotate.
I got admonished about that
I
previously.
haven't been admonished, but it's
think you just
consistent
have.
with my behavior because I also put my glass of water on my table without a coaster, so I
There's no help for you. All right, Aaron, you've got it.
Good afternoon. I'm Aaron Beck. I'm with the Office of Management and Finance Business Operations, and we provide financial services to the GeoBond program. I'm going to give a quick update on the finances of the program, and this is in your report just after page 3. The original budget for the program was just a little bit over $100 million, and that's after factoring in all of the project cost for the projects like the Emergency Coordination Center and the radio replacement project that had other resources beyond just the GEO bonds. The original budget shows the $72.4 million of GEO bond authority that we have, plus the other resources that were available for the ECC project and the radio project. The current budget for the program is around $105 million, and that increase is due to recognizing some grant revenue that we received associated with the Station 21 project and the apparatus project. And then also some additional resources that we've appropriated for the Station 21 project. Through June, we've had 2 of our 3 planned debt sales for a total of $51.6 million. And all of the other planned resources have been received, so we've received a total of $85.2 million. Through June, we've spent $59.5 million with the ECC project completed and the Station 21 project and other projects well underway. We're now working on our 3rd debt sale, planning that out, and we'll be updating project cost estimates and when expenses will be incurred so that we can determine when that sale will need to take place and the amount of that sale. This will factor in the interest earnings that we've received on the project or the program so far, which is $440,000, and any projected project savings that the project managers forecast. At this point, we are projecting that we'll have that debt sale in the spring, and prior to that sale, we'll be reviewing that amount with first the Independent Citizens Committee and then you all.
So Aaron, does that mean that there'll be, are we projecting that there'll be unexpended funds under the cap that's allowed for the?
That's correct. Yeah.
Thank you. Please. Nope. Who's next? Marco?
Yeah, I can speak about the apparatus. This is Marco Benetti, Portland Fire. To date, we've purchased and put into service 4 rapid response vehicles that are in service around the city. We've got 1 tiller truck at Truck 3 in Northwest Portland, 1 heavy rescue, Squad 12, which is the heavy rescue that's out and serving Southeast Portland now in conjunction with our downtown heavy rescue teams. We have 1 Quint that we've purchased. It's a used Quint that we've been able to put into play at a significant savings, about half is what a new one would cost. We have ordered and nearly completed 2 fireboats. They should hopefully be delivered sometime in the next couple of months. So we've got a few things to work out there, but they're on schedule for near completion. We have 1 Quint that's been ordered. a brand new one that we've spec'd out based on the information we received from using the used one, as well as the current one that's still in service at Truck 8. That will replace Truck 8 in North Portland on North Interstate. That's scheduled to be delivered sometime around April or May this spring. We had an order placed for 3 tiller trucks, which will replace Truck 7 in East Portland, Truck 22 in North Portland, and Truck 25 in Southeast Portland. And we have 2 air rehab light units, or a combination unit, that is actually going to replace 4 of our apparatus with these 2 combination units. So it'll buy us some space on our apparatus floors, as well as kind of make them a combination efficiency in apparatus. So those are going to be going to pre-construction probably next month. The remaining apparatus we have to order are 8 fire pumpers, 2 or possibly 3 brush units, but we're looking more at 2 now instead of 3 due to we're doing a needs assessment currently with operations, and 1 water tender. The water tender is going to replace kind of an antiquated old 4-wheel drive fire engine we have there that has a 1,000-gallon tank on it that is serving East Portland, and we're going to replace that with a new one that's going to cover the needs of the east side, and the current one we have is down in the central area by Lloyd Center. So we're trying to cover both sides of the city. As Nicolette mentioned, each one of these apparatus is a kind of an instrumental project unto themselves. So each one has specific specifications we have to design and build to the operational standpoint. So we're working hard on that. We're doing the best we can to keep the costs as low as possible and still meet the needs and functionality that we require for the city. And I think to keep it brief, that's all I have right now.
Great, thank you. Next.
Okay. My name is Connie Johnson. I'm a capital improvement project manager with OMF Facilities. Of the 2010 bond, $7.9 million was dedicated for the replacement of Station 21, formerly called Station 7. At that time, the need for emergency water rescue in the downtown core area had been identified, but all the necessary components of the project had not been. We did have a preliminary geotechnical and structural engineering assessment detailing the structural inadequacy of the existing station and revealing the need for a significant soil stabilization effort to mitigate the effects of soil liquefaction in a seismic event, an issue we would have faced at almost any location along the riverbank. October 2011, Welton Architecture began preliminary design work. During design development, the most significant program elements added to the project were a boathouse for 2 rescue craft and 16 additional pilings and a community room available to the public. The added scope increased the construction budget from the low confidence initial estimate of just under $5 million to just over $6 million. Additional funds were identified to close the gap, including a balance from the 1998 bond, sale of surplus properties financed by the 98 bond, and a federal grant for the boathouse secured by Portland Fire and Rescue. September 2012, prior to beginning contract documentation, Skanska USA joined the project team as a construction manager general contractor, or CMGC, and provided pre-construction services such as constructability reviews, concurrent cost estimating, value engineering, and identification of significant project cost risks, also known as unknown conditions, so that sufficient contingency could be identified in the budget. The final guaranteed maximum price of $6,010,828 was approved by Council August 2013. City required additional work added 3 weeks to the original 14-month project schedule, but otherwise the project achieved substantial completion on time November 21st. The Esplanade was reopened the following week, and the staging area was cleaned, restriped, and available for public parking soon thereafter. Emergency responders were able to move from their temporary facility into the new station in time for Thanksgiving dinner. Change orders represent 4.5% of the original contract price and were covered by the project contingency. Skanska anticipates a final change order crediting the city with their portion of the construction savings, or with our portion, the city, our portion, of the construction savings, or 75%, lowering that number to 3% over the original contract for a final contract amount estimated at about $6,186,000. Skanska's final counting should happen at the end of this month, and then I can run a project report and see what we have left in terms of the contingency and that sort of thing. The 2% for art contribution was a collaborative effort between design team, artist, and contractor. The screen facing the river and mounted on the catwalk is called the Rippling Wall. 10-foot-long wood carving mounted on the wall in the community room is called Ripples in Elm. You'll probably all have an opportunity to see that soon. The station opening is preliminarily scheduled for January 2015. Although the documentation has not been fully submitted, we anticipate the project achieving LEED Gold certification. And I would just like to also thank the ICC and the Project Oversight Committee for their interest in the project. They always brought a lot of attention and candor to the discussion. So, thank you.
Thank you. Just two comments. One is I had a chance as the Arts Commissioner to look at the art recently. Actually, it was on the photographs of it, but I think it's a home run. And the wood sculpture inside the building is also just very beautiful. And so congrats on that. And if the opening is scheduled for January, is it the intention of the Bureau to do an opening and a dedication together?
Yeah, Chief Jansen's would like to try, we're trying to give the fire station personnel a chance to kind of get moved in, get settled in, identify any, pickup work, things that need to be cleaned up and brushed up for livability things and presentation to the public, allowing the station captain to kind of get all those things dialed in. But it will be open to the public, and the scope is going to be unlimited, I think.
But the event will both be an opening and a dedication? So the former commissioner will be there at that event?
That I'm not sure. I can't speak for the chief on that, but I would assume that, yes.
Okay, who's next?
Mayor, Commissioners, thank you. I'm Carl Larson for the Public Safety Systems Revitalization Program.
Push the button on the bottom of that thing there, Carl. There you go.
How about now?
Now you're good.
Carl Larson from PSSRP. I'm two project managers for the radio project. My co-project manager, Mark Tanner, is also with us here in the audience. I'll be very brief to let you know where we are with the project. We're about midway through the radio project. We have 14 sites. Originally, we had 15 sites that we were doing. One site's being decommissioned. So of the 14 sites, we have 7 of those sites now installed, what we call cold install or ready for power up. So between September of this year and March of next year, we'll have all 14 sites with the equipment installed and with the antennas going on those sites as well. So we make very good progress on the infrastructure itself. On the portable and mobile side, we have distributed all of the portables and all of the mobiles for the police bureau. We have started on distributing the fire bureau's radios, and that will be accomplished over the next few months. And of that, really takes in the bulk of the portables and mobiles that we have. We believe that the system will be up and as designed in the middle of 2015. We'll be able to start testing on that system. We'll be able to start moving units over, both inside and outside the city. And that process will take us all the way through June of 2016, when the process will be completed on time and to you, Commissioner Novick, under budget. So we appreciate that very much. Just, Mark and I have the privilege of being the face of the radio project. A lot of people participate in the radio project. We've had a lot of help, and we continue to do so. And I just want to make mention, BTS staff, Ben Berry and his staff, making sure that we have adequate resources within the city to do what we need to do. Scott Howes and his staff as the radio administrator and all his engineers, making sure that they can do what they need to do, and working with our contractors for that, and it's a monumental task. The sponsors that we have, Lisa Turley, Director of BOAC, Chief Jansen's, who's a sponsor, Chief Reese, and shortly Chief O'Day. Those folks are very busy folks, and we don't see them all the time. We try to keep them up to date as to what's going on, but they make sure that the resources within their bureaus are available to us to accomplish this and to keep us on track and on budget. So we appreciate that very much. My manager, Jeff Baer, he wanted to make sure I understood this was short and sweet, so I'll just mention him. And then we have all of the citizens that help us. We have our own radio Project Oversight Committee that we work with, the ICC committee that we work with, the consultants that continue to watch us for QA and independent verification and validation, and all the vendors that are participating in this. We have a very good team process. We look forward to having a very successful project, and we know that all of you do too.
Carl, could you give us just a quick update on the status of our negotiation and relationship with the city of Gresham?
Yeah, Gresham Butte, or we know it as Walters Hill. As you may have read in the papers there, when we originally put in that project, we had some disagreements with the city of Gresham as to what was necessary at Walters Hill. We have since spent a lot of time negotiating, talking to, commiserating with, if you will, the mayor of Gresham, along with your direction, Mayor, as to make sure that that gets resolved. I think as cooler heads got involved and we looked at what we could do there, we resubmitted that application. That application is due to be responded back from Gresham December 16th. From all indications that we've gotten, it's still a very positive outlook, and so we're very hopeful that that's going to come in a positive way.
You mentioned cooler heads prevailing. From your point of view, was this mayor the hothead or the other mayor the hothead? Who did you find was the biggest obstacle?
Yeah, that's a good question to not answer.
My mayor always gives the appropriate response.
Boy, is he smooth. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mayor Hales, Commissioners, my name is Jim Coker. I'm with OMF Facility Services, and I'm here to report on the Emergency Coordination Center project, which, as you all know, is pretty well complete. We have had a technical delay in actually closing out the construction project, which is the main reason for my report today. The construction contract with Emmerich Construction was substantially complete in October of last year, and both PBEM and the Water Bureau moved into the building last year, and there was a dedication ceremony in January. In late winter of this year, final punch list work was being completed, and Emmerich Construction was on track for final completion of the construction contract when a large mechanical unit was found to have experienced significant freeze damage over the winter. Because of the size and cost and technical challenges associated with replacing that unit, it took until this summer to replace that. Due to those technical issues, we had to delay the final building commissioning process, which is ongoing right now. The unit has been replaced. Final building commissioning is underway right now. And we are looking at doing final completion sometime next month, which will then allow us to come back to you with final closeout of the construction contract. The budget information submitted to the ICC that you have earlier this year remains the same with the project under budget. That completes my report.
Thank you. Any questions for our panel of great project managers? Thank you all very much. Anyone else that wants to speak on this item today?
No one else signed up?
If not, then I could use a motion to adopt the
So
report.
moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Novick?
Thank you all very, very much. Aye.
Fritz?
Was a very efficient and also effective report, and thanks particularly to the Citizen Oversight Committee for their diligence. It's important when we ask voters for money and the taxpayers have paid for these bonds that folks know that we've spent it wisely and efficiently, and indeed that's what we're hearing today. And the lack of anybody being, it's really annoying when we have something that's really gone well, how there's nobody here, there's no reporters, there's no cheering in the galleries or marching band. We need to probably fix something around that, although then it would seem like that's an unusual thing, right? So maybe we can't have the marching band to celebrate you because this is what we're supposed to do. But thank you for doing what you're supposed to do and also reporting to us and to the people of Portland that their money has been spent well. Thank you for what Portland Fire and Rescue does in order to keep people safe and to save lives. Aye.
Fish?
Just want to remember that Measure 26117 was spearheaded by former City Councilor Randy Leonard. And we joked the day after the election that he was landslide Leonard because I think it passed with 50.0-something% of the vote. But it was vitally important And I want to echo what Commissioner Fritz said. This is a terrific report. And the checks and balances on this are just right. In fact, the cover memo to the council is signed by the Chief Administrative Officer and concludes with the following. The program is on track to meet its objective. I recommend that council accept this report. So we have lots of eyes doing the work to make sure that these funds are being spent wisely and consistent with the referral. So I want to thank everybody for an excellent presentation. And I also just want to acknowledge my appointee, Mick Seidel. And Commissioner Novick, I met Mick about 10 years ago, and I met him the way lawyers often meet other lawyers. He sued one of my clients. And in the course of that, I learned that Mick Seidel was one of the top trial lawyers in the state of Oregon. So we probably settled the case. And then we ended up tag teaming on some work, and I got to know him. And I was frankly delighted when he agreed to take on this assignment, because one thing about being a trial lawyer is you don't have a lot of free time, or your time is episodic. And I think it's just a delight. And when I saw him today, I was a little sheepish because I expected him to take me aside and admonish me for all the time he's been spending. And what he told me is what he said at council, which is he's learned a lot, and it's really been a great experience. And I'm just so grateful to Mick and all the citizens who've given up their time to be on this oversight committee. It's important work. So thank you. Aye.
Hales?
There's just way too much good news, competent management, and clear-eyed oversight in this room this afternoon. There must be something wrong somewhere. Thank you all very much. Well done. Aye.
The windstorm is tearing the city
There is a
apart.
windstorm outside, so yeah, we'll go outside for the bad news. It's all good in here. Thank you very much. Be
Are we
careful.
sending over that last matter?
Yes, we need to announce. that we
To
don't-
read it
we need-
first.
yes. 1293, amend transient lodging tax to add definitions and clarify duties for operators for short-term rental locations.
That's rescheduled to December 18th, and we're
At
adjourned.
3:30 PM, time certain.
3:30 PM. We're adjourned at last.